It was a quiet Sunday morning in the small town of Willow Creek, Oregon. The sky was gray, the wind slow, and the sound of birds filled the air. Ethan Miller, a 27-year-old mechanic, stood in his backyard, holding a rusty shovel. He wasn't doing anything special, just cleaning the old ground behind his house, the one he had bought 2 months ago. His dog, Buddy, ran around, chasing leaves. The backyard looked peaceful, except for one spot, an old oak tree, tall and lonely, standing near the wooden fence. Ethan noticed that the ground beneath it was uneven, like something had been buried there long ago. Curious, he started digging. The soil was hard and dry. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something solid, a clink sound that didn't belong to stone or root. Ethan dropped to his knees and brushed the dirt away. There it was, a small, rusty key, half covered in mud. It looked ancient, heavy, handmade. The handle had strange carvings that time had almost erased. But one line was still visible. It said, "To what's been forgotten." Ethan frowned. He turned the key in his hand, trying to guess what it could open. It didn't look like a house key or a car key. Maybe an old chest? Or a piece of decoration. He wiped it clean and stood up. "Well, Buddy," he said, smiling at his dog, "maybe we just found buried treasure." Buddy barked, wagging his tail, as if agreeing. That night, Ethan placed the key on his bedside table. The moonlight shone through the window, making the metal glimmer faintly. He thought about the house's history. The place was over 60 years old. The previous owner, an old man, had died without family. The neighbors said strange things that the house had a past. But Ethan never believed in ghost stories. He lay down and closed his eyes. The night was quiet. Until he heard it. Click. A soft metallic sound echoed through the still air. Ethan's eyes opened instantly. It came again, a click, like a lock turning. He sat up, listening carefully. The sound seemed to come from the backyard. He grabbed a flashlight and walked to the back door. The floorboards creaked under his feet. Buddy followed, growling softly. When he stepped outside, the wind was still, but the air felt colder, heavy, almost watchful. He shined the light toward the oak tree. And froze. The ground he had dug earlier wasn't flat anymore. The soil was pushed upward, cracked slightly open, as if something beneath had moved. Ethan's heart pounded. He knelt down again, brushing the dirt aside with his hands. The key he had found earlier slipped from his pocket and fell near the roots. Something metallic caught the light, the corner of a box, buried deeper. He cleared more soil until a small metal box appeared. It was locked. The keyhole looked old and rusted. Without thinking, Ethan took the key and tried it. It didn't fit. Too small. Disappointed, he sighed. Maybe the box had nothing to do with the key. He decided to take it inside to open it later. But as he pulled it, something slipped out from the dirt beside it, a small black and white photograph. He picked it up carefully. It showed a woman standing in front of a house, his house. She had bright eyes, a kind smile, and was wearing a long dress that looked like it was from the 1960s. Ethan turned the photo over. On the back, written in elegant handwriting, were the words, "To my love, always, L.M." He didn't recognize her. He'd never seen her face before. That night, he couldn't sleep. The photo and key lay on the table beside him, both strange, both whispering of something long forgotten. Every few minutes, he looked at them again. At midnight, a sudden noise broke the silence, the sound of footsteps, faint but real, coming from outside. He got up quickly, grabbed the flashlight, and opened the back door. Nothing. The yard was empty. The oak tree stood still under the moonlight. But the dirt where he had dug earlier was slightly different, again disturbed, as if someone had touched it. He stepped closer. The flashlight flickered once, then twice. The beam caught something small lying near the roots. The photograph, the one he had brought inside, was there again, lying on the ground, half covered in dirt. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He picked it up, shaking. On the back, under the old message, new words were scratched in faint pencil. "Find me." Buddy barked, tail between his legs. Ethan turned around. No one was there. Just cold wind. He ran back inside, locking the door behind him. The key was still on the table, but now it looked different. The metal was darker, the carved words seemed deeper, almost glowing under the dim light. Ethan stared at it for a long time. His heartbeat wouldn't slow down. "Find me," the words echoed in his mind. He looked outside one last time. The oak tree swayed gently, like it was breathing. And then he saw it for less than a second, a faint figure standing near the tree, a woman in an old dress, her head turned toward the house. The flashlight slipped from his hand. When he looked again, the figure was gone. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He just sat in the dark, holding the rusty key, staring at the photo, wondering who Lily Monroe was, and why she was asking him to find her. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds, but Ethan Miller was already awake. He hadn't slept. His eyes were red, his coffee cold. The rusty key and the old photograph still lay on the table, silent reminders of the strange night before. He turned the photo over again. "To my love, always, L.M." And below it, in light pencil, "Find me." Ethan whispered, "Who are you, L.M.?" His dog, Buddy, barked once, as if answering, then ran to the backyard door. Ethan followed. The morning air was fresh, but the ground under the oak tree still looked disturbed. The soil was darker, almost wet, even though it hadn't rained. Ethan's heart thudded. He remembered the shadow, the whisper, and that cold feeling from the night before. He didn't believe in ghosts, but now, he wasn't sure. He picked up his phone and decided to find out who LM was. He searched online for Willow Creek house history, old residents, and finally typed, L.M. Willow Creek 1960s. It took time, but one result caught his eye: an old newspaper article from 1964. The title read, "Young woman missing, Lily Monroe vanishes from her family home." Ethan froze. The house address listed below was the same as his house. The article said that Lily Monroe, a 25-year-old schoolteacher, disappeared one summer night without a trace. Police searched everywhere but never found her. Locals said she was last seen standing under the big oak tree in her backyard. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he scrolled down. The photo in the article was the same one he had, the same smile, the same dress. He leaned back, whispering, L.M. Lily Monroe. That night, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. Who was she? What happened to her? Why was her picture buried under his yard after all these years? When he finally dozed off, the dream came. He was standing in the backyard, moonlight shining on the oak tree. A woman stood under it, the same woman from the photograph. Her hair moved softly in the wind. Her voice was faint but clear. "Find me, Ethan." He stepped closer, but as he reached out, her face turned pale, her eyes wide with fear. She whispered, "He's coming." Then the dream shattered. Ethan woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. His alarm showed 3:17 a.m. Buddy was growling near the window. Ethan turned on the light. The curtains moved slightly even though the window was closed. Something was off. He went to the backyard door. At first, he saw nothing, but then, in the weak moonlight, he noticed them. Footprints. Small, barefoot, leading from the oak tree straight to his back door. Ethan's breath caught. He opened the door slowly and shone his flashlight. The footprints stopped right at the door, like someone had been standing there, waiting. He whispered, "Lily." The wind blew softly, carrying a faint sound like a woman's sob. Buddy whimpered and hid behind him. Ethan felt a strange pull, a voice in his head whispering, "Go on." He followed the footprints back toward the oak tree. Then, halfway there, he saw something he hadn't noticed before: a small wooden door at the back of the house, half covered in vines. He frowned. He had lived here for 2 months, but he had never seen that door. He wiped the vines away and tried the handle. Locked. The wood was old, cracked with age. Then a thought hit him. The rusty key. He ran inside, grabbed it, and came back. His hands trembled as he pushed the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a slow, heavy turn, the key clicked. The door creaked open. A wave of cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of dust and something old or something forgotten. Ethan lifted his flashlight and looked inside. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. Wooden steps, covered with cobwebs. Buddy barked once and refused to go down. Ethan took a deep breath and whispered, "It's okay, boy. Stay here." Step by step, he descended. The air grew colder. The silence was thick. Each step groaned under his weight. At the bottom, his flashlight beam landed on a small room. It looked untouched for decades: broken chairs, old furniture, and shelves full of dusty boxes. He picked up one of the boxes. Inside were letters, neatly tied with a faded red ribbon. He opened one. The handwriting was beautiful. "My dearest Daniel. Tonight, I saw him watching us again. I fear he knows. I fear what he might do. But I will wait for you under the oak tree like always. Forever yours. Lily." Ethan's heart pounded. Daniel. So Lily had someone, a secret lover. But who was he? He opened another letter. He said, "If I ever speak of us again, he will bury the truth forever." The paper ended with a tear, the ink smudged. Ethan's flashlight flickered. He heard something faint, a whisper, close to his ear. "Don't let him find it." He spun around, light shaking. The room was empty. But he could feel her presence, cold, gentle, watching. The flashlight steadied again. On the far wall, something caught his eye: a small mirror. It was foggy, cracked at the edges. He stepped closer. His reflection wavered strangely, like the glass was breathing. And then, behind his reflection, he saw her, Lily Monroe, standing silently, eyes full of sadness. Ethan gasped and dropped the flashlight. When he looked again, the mirror was empty. He ran up the stairs, heart racing, key still in his hand. When he reached the top, he locked the door again and leaned against it, breathing heavily. He looked down at the key. The metal was warm now, like it had absorbed something alive. He walked back inside and sat on the couch. The letters lay beside him. His hands were shaking. Then he noticed something strange: one letter on top, one he hadn't opened yet. It wasn't old and faded like the rest. The paper looked new. It read, "Ethan, it's your turn now." The house was quiet, but Ethan Miller couldn't stop shaking. The letter he found in the basement lay on the table, the ink still dark and fresh. "Ethan, it's your turn now." He kept reading the line over and over, hoping it would somehow make sense. But it didn't. How could a letter written decades ago have his name on it? No one had lived in that house for years before him. His hands were cold. His heartbeat wouldn't slow down. He tried to convince himself that maybe someone was playing a trick. But deep inside, he knew something bigger was happening. Something connected to Lily Monroe. That night, rain started to fall. The sky thundered. The old house creaked as if it was breathing. Ethan sat at his table, the rusty key beside him. Every time lightning flashed, the key seemed to glimmer just for a second. Buddy, his dog, refused to go near the basement door. He stayed in the corner, whining softly. Ethan finally stood up and said to himself, "I have to go back down." He grabbed his flashlight, a small knife, and the key. Slowly, he unlocked the door again. The smell of damp air and dust hit him instantly. The wooden stairs groaned as he walked down. When his light reached the bottom, he froze. The room didn't look the same anymore. It was still the same basement, but something had changed. The boxes and furniture were moved, forming a clear path to the far wall, a part of the basement he hadn't seen before. And on that wall, there was a door. A small metal door, half hidden behind old boards. Ethan's flashlight trembled in his hand. "What the hell?" he whispered. He moved the boards aside. The metal was cold to the touch, covered with a thin layer of dust. And right in the center of the door was an engraved symbol, the same design carved onto the rusty key. It had to be connected. He slowly pushed the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a click, the door opened. A wave of cold air brushed his face, almost like a breath. Ethan stepped inside. The room beyond was small, a hidden chamber, built behind the basement wall. It looked untouched for decades. There was an old wooden table covered with papers, and above it, a single mirror hanging crookedly. He picked up one of the papers. It was a torn letter written in the same elegant handwriting as Lily's. "He knows. He's coming. If I disappear, the truth is in the..." The letter ended there, cut off mid-sentence. The bottom half was missing. Ethan looked around. On the table were also a few old photographs, Lily Monroe and a man he didn't recognize. The man was tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit. On the back of one photo, it said, "Lily and Daniel forever." So this was Daniel, her secret lover. The one she wrote about. Ethan whispered, "What happened to you, Lily?" Suddenly, the flashlight flickered. Then, a soft voice echoed in the room, faint, almost like a whisper from the walls. "Don't let him find it." Ethan turned around fast. "Who's there?" Silence. The air grew colder. His breath came out in small clouds. The mirror on the wall fogged up slowly, as if someone was breathing on it. Then, 3 words appeared on the glass, written by an unseen hand. "He killed me." Ethan's throat went dry. He stepped closer, heart racing. "Lily." The mirror cleared suddenly, and for a split second, Lily Monroe's reflection appeared beside his own. Pale skin, sad eyes, tears running down her face. He stumbled back, terrified. When he looked again, she was gone. Buddy barked upstairs, a sharp warning sound. Something was happening above. Ethan ran up the stairs, the key still in his hand. When he reached the main floor, the living room lights were flickering. The front door was half open. The wind outside roared. He shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. He closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. The key was warm again, almost pulsing in his hand. He looked around. The old photo of Lily on the table was gone. The space where it had been was empty. He froze. Slowly, he turned his head toward the hallway mirror near the stairs. The photo was now stuck inside the mirror's glass, pressed flat, as if part of it. Lily's eyes looked directly at him. Lightning flashed outside. For one terrifying second, he saw a man's reflection behind Lily in the mirror, the same man from the photo, Daniel. But Daniel's eyes were dark, angry, lifeless. Then everything went black. When the lights came back, Ethan found himself sitting on the floor, trembling. The mirror was empty again. He looked down. A small journal had fallen near his feet. Its cover was torn, the name written faintly, Lily Monroe. He picked it up and opened it carefully. The last page stopped his heart. "If anyone finds this, he buried me beneath the oak tree. The key will reveal the truth. But it will cost you something too." Ethan dropped the journal, staring at it in shock. His backyard. The oak tree. Rain pounded against the windows. The thunder roared again. The house groaned. He grabbed his coat, flashlight, and shovel. Buddy barked, trying to stop him, but Ethan couldn't ignore it anymore. He had to know. He ran outside into the rain, lightning flashing above. The wind howled as he reached the oak tree. The soil looked darker than before. He began to dig. The ground was wet, heavy, cold. Each scoop sent mud flying. He kept digging, faster, his hands shaking. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something solid. He wiped the mud away. Wood. An old wooden box. His breath came fast. He dropped to his knees and used the key. It fit perfectly. The box opened with a sharp creak. Inside was a small heart-shaped locket, covered in dirt, and a piece of folded paper. Ethan opened the paper. It was a page from Lily's diary. To whoever finds this, know the truth. I loved Daniel, but Daniel was not the man I thought he was. The next line was smudged, unreadable. Then, at the very bottom, written in faint ink. He's still here. Ethan looked up at the oak tree. The wind stopped. Everything was silent. And then, from behind him, a man's whisper brushed his ear. You shouldn't have opened it. The night was dark, the air heavy with rain and fear. Ethan Miller stood frozen near the oak tree, the sound of thunder echoing above. The whisper still lingered in his ear. You shouldn't have opened it. He spun around, flashlight shaking in his hand. Nobody was there. Only shadows, the wind, and the endless rain. Buddy barked from the porch, whining to come inside. Ethan ran back to the house, soaked and shaking. He slammed the door shut and dropped the key on the table. The locket he found in the box was still in his hand. A small, heart-shaped pendant, rusted but beautiful. He opened it carefully. Inside were two tiny photographs. Lily Monroe, smiling softly, and beside her, a man Ethan knew from the old photos. Daniel. But there was something else. Behind Daniel's face, a faint image of another man was printed over it, his grandfather, Henry Miller. Ethan's eyes widened. No way. He grabbed his phone, went to the old family photo album app his mother had sent him months ago. He searched for his grandfather's picture. When he compared it, there was no doubt. Henry Miller and Daniel looked almost identical. He whispered, Daniel Monroe, was Henry Miller. It didn't make sense. His grandfather had died years ago. He was known as a good man, a respected teacher. But Lily Monroe disappeared in 1964, the same year Henry left his old town and started a new life in Willow Creek. Ethan's mind spun. If Henry and Daniel were the same person, then Lily's story wasn't just some mystery from the past. It was his family's secret. He went back to the diary page he found in the box. The last line repeated in his head. He's still here. Ethan whispered, Lily, what do you mean? Lightning flashed again, and the lights flickered in the house. Then the sound of footsteps echoed soft, heavy, coming from the hallway. Who's there? Ethan called out. No answer. The air turned cold. The old photo of Lily on the wall began to tremble, the frame rattling. Buddy barked and ran upstairs, hiding. Ethan followed the sound, step by step, until he reached the living room. The TV turned on by itself, static, white noise. Then the image changed. It wasn't a show or a signal, it was a home video. Ethan stared in disbelief. It was old footage, grainy and black and white. A man stood near the same oak tree, digging with a shovel. He was young, but Ethan recognized him. It was Henry Miller. His grandfather. Ethan's hands went cold. On the screen, Henry looked around nervously, then whispered something. Ethan turned up the volume. Forgive me, Lily. Then Henry dropped something into the hole, a small body-shaped shadow wrapped in cloth. Ethan stumbled back, horrified. No, that can't be real. The video glitched, then stopped. The TV went black. A whisper filled the room again, this time close and clear. He buried me. Ethan turned, and there she was, Lily Monroe, standing in the corner. Her white dress was torn, her face pale but calm. Her green eyes shone softly in the dark. Ethan froze. His voice shook. Lily. She stepped forward slowly, her voice gentle but full of sadness. He loved me once. But when I told him about the baby, he changed. He said no one could know. He buried the truth, and me with it. Ethan's chest tightened. The baby. She nodded. His blood runs in you, Ethan. The room went silent. Only the sound of rain outside remained. Ethan couldn't breathe for a moment. That meant Lily Monroe was his great-grandmother. And the man who killed her his own grandfather. Ethan's voice cracked. Why show me this now? Lily looked toward the table where the rusty key lay. Because the key wakes what's been buried. You found me. But now, he's awake too. The house shuddered with a deep, low sound like a groan from beneath the floorboards. The lights flickered again. Ethan looked around desperately. What's happening? Lily stepped closer, her face full of sorrow. He doesn't want you to know. He's still here, Ethan. His spirit never left. He will try to stop you. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the basement. The door downstairs slammed open by itself. Ethan grabbed a flashlight. Lily, what do I do? But when he looked back, she was gone. Only her voice lingered. Finish what he started. End it. Ethan rushed to the basement door. The wind howled through the cracks. The air inside was freezing cold. He pointed his flashlight down. Shadows danced along the walls. He took one shaky step down. The light flickered. Then, a man's voice echoed from the dark below. You shouldn't have come back, boy. Ethan froze. Who's there? The voice grew deeper, closer. This house isn't yours. It's mine. The shadows moved. For a second, Ethan saw him, Henry Miller, his grandfather, standing in the darkness, eyes glowing faintly. Ethan stepped back, shaking. You killed her. The shadow smiled. Love makes men do terrible things. Then, before Ethan could move, the door slammed shut, locking him inside. The light went out. He shouted, "Let me out," pounding on the door. The voice whispered again, softer now, right beside his ear. It's your turn now. The same words from the letter. Ethan fell to his knees in the dark, clutching the key in his fist. It burned hot, glowing faintly even in the pitch black. He could feel Lily's presence, too gentle, desperate. Don't let him win, Ethan, she whispered. Finish it under the tree. The thunder roared again. Ethan ran up, forcing the basement door open with all his strength. He burst into the rain, key in hand, heading for the oak tree one last time. Lightning flashed, and for a brief moment, he saw two figures under the tree, Lily and Henry, locked in eternal silence. Ethan shouted into the storm, "I'll finish it." He drove the key deep into the wet soil. The ground shook. A bright light burst from beneath, and a scream echoed through the night, half pain, half relief. Then silence. The rain slowed. The wind stopped. The air felt lighter. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted. The key lay beside him, cracked and smoking. The curse was breaking. He whispered softly, "Rest now, Lily." Behind him, the faint voice replied, "Thank you." The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of rain and earth. Ethan Miller sat under the oak tree, his clothes soaked, his hands muddy. The rusty key lay cracked beside him, smoke still rising from it. For a long time, he didn't move. The only sound was his own breathing and the gentle dripping of water from the tree's branches. He whispered softly, "It's over, Lily, it's finally over." Buddy came running toward him, tail wagging, but stopped short, sniffing the ground near the roots. The soil looked freshly turned and beneath it, something faintly glimmered. Ethan frowned. What now? He brushed the dirt aside. Beneath the roots, a small metal box was half buried, one he hadn't seen before. Different from the others. He lifted it carefully. The lid wasn't locked this time. Inside was a folded letter and a small silver ring. The ring had 2 letters engraved on it. LM and HM. He opened the letter. The handwriting was neat but shaky. "If you have found this, it means my secret is no longer buried. I was weak. I let anger win. I could not let the world know what I had done. But love, Ethan, real love, never dies. It waits even in darkness. Forgive me. Henry Miller." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. His grandfather had confessed, right here, before he died. He looked up at the oak tree. The same place Lily Monroe had loved, cried, and died beneath. A breeze moved softly through the leaves. For the first time, it didn't feel cold or heavy. It felt warm, peaceful, almost like a gentle touch. Ethan smiled sadly. "You can rest now, both of you." He took the locket and the ring and buried them together under the roots. Then he stood up and looked at the sky. The clouds were breaking, and sunlight began to spill through. For a moment, everything was quiet until he heard it again. A woman's voice, faint and calm. "Thank you, Ethan." He turned around quickly, but no one was there. Only the wind through the trees. He walked back to the house, feeling lighter, though his hands still trembled. When he stepped inside, the air smelled different, clean, new. The flickering lights were steady now. The mirror on the wall was clear. The house felt alive again. He went to the basement one last time. The cold air was gone. The shadows were gone too. On the dusty wall, where Lily's words had once appeared, there was only one faint line left. "Love never dies." He smiled weakly. "No, it doesn't." Ethan spent the next few days cleaning the place, packing up old boxes, and fixing what was broken. Neighbors noticed he looked calmer, though a bit distant. He didn't tell them everything, no one would believe it anyway. When everything was ready, Ethan decided to sell the house. He didn't want to stay there anymore. The story had ended. The past had found peace. On his last night, he sat in the living room, one final cup of coffee in his hand. The moonlight fell across the floor, soft and silver. He looked toward the oak tree through the window. 2 faint shapes stood there, Lily and Henry, holding hands under the branches. Their faces looked calm now, free of pain. Then, slowly, they faded into the night. Ethan whispered, "Goodbye." He left the next morning. A few weeks later, the house stood quiet again. The new owner, a young woman named Emma Clark, moved in with her cat. She loved the charm of old homes, the way they carried stories in their walls. One sunny afternoon, she decided to plant flowers under the oak tree. She knelt down with her gardening tools, humming a tune. As she dug, her shovel hit something hard. Clink. She brushed the soil away, and there it was. A small, rusty key, cracked at the edges but still whole enough to see the words carved faintly along the handle. "To what's been forgotten." Emma smiled softly. Old keys always have stories," she said. She slipped it into her pocket, not noticing the faint footprint pressed beside the tree, a man's footprint, half buried in mud. That night, as Emma unpacked boxes, the key sat on her kitchen table, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Outside, the oak tree swayed gently. and for a second, just a second, two silhouettes appeared beneath it, watching. A whisper floated through the quiet night air. Love never dies, it just waits to be found. The end.